Welcome to Let's Bet, the show for folks who love betting on sports but hate losing money. I'm going to show you how to increase your sports betting bankroll by gaining confidence so that you can live the lifestyle that you ultimately deserve. I'm your host, Scott Pritchard, professional full-time sports bettor for 31 years, founder of Pritchard'sPicks.com. Circa Friday Night Invitational took third place last year, and you can find me every weekend, every Saturday and Sunday in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We're broadcasting live from beautiful Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, to Pritchard'sPicks.com on demand and your favorite podcast and video distribution platforms. To reach out to us, we encourage you to do so, but only if you have something nice to say. Email us at letsbet@pritchardspicks.com. That's Pritchard's Picks. That's actually letsbet@pritchardspicks.com. Now let's get right into it. My guest this week on Let's Bet, this guy won the 2021 Circa Survivor contest. First place, $6 million. Are you kidding me? This guy outpicked 5,200 plus contestants, tied for first with four others, ultimately net win of $1.2 million. Please welcome my friend, colleague, mentor, and all-around good guy, Chris Piper. Congrats and welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, Scott.
I would imagine, I can only imagine what kind of a emotional roller coaster that might have been over a 20-week window, because again, one and done. If you picked the wrong team, you're out. Hasta la vista.
Very true. I mean, it was a roller coaster for the whole entire 20 weeks, but I only had one entry. I had to make it count, and I did.
Interesting that you said you only had one entry, because I know last year was the first year I got dialed in, and I had 10 entries, and I went 11-0, looking good, feeling good. You and me were at the VIP and at the sports book here in Las Vegas when I got ousted. Washington taking a shot against the New York Giants. I had not one, not two, not five, but six turnovers. I didn't turn the ball over once. It was Washington who turned it over 6 times. But my question for you is, as I've monitored this contest, Chris, ever since you won it back in 2021, is what are some of the mistakes that you see people make that get knocked out early and often?
I think what a lot of them do is they have too many entries to begin with. I mean, my one entry, I was basically, I narrowed it down to 3 teams each week. And then I basically waited for a little while for injury reports, all that type of stuff. And then I decided to pick one game, the game that I wanted to pick, and basically, put it out there. And if it won, it won. And I continued on. And that's what I did.
I've heard novices at the sports book say, well, you just basically have to be lucky to win this contest. And I'm thinking, hey, I've been lucky in life once or twice, but after that, they never returned my calls. But it's impossible, because you can't be lucky 20 consecutive times, 20 consecutive weeks. But I've always said that luck is the residue of design. My question for you is, objectively and honestly, how many of the 20 weeks were you lucky?
I would say at least 5. Of the 20 weeks.
Do you care to share maybe one of those 5? Do you remember?
Yes, I remember all of them. But I remember the Christmas Day game. The Packers played the Browns, and it was in Cleveland. And all of us had the Packers. All I had to do was win the game. And one guy, I believe, had Tennessee. And he would have taken down the whole entire $6 million. But all of the other people, like myself, we had the Packers. Thank goodness for Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield threw 4 interceptions that day. If they would have ran the ball down the throats of the Packers, we would have all been out. But they decided to put it in the hands of Baker Mayfield, and thank goodness.
Well, and again, Baker Mayfield is going to do what Baker Mayfield does. He's consistently inconsistent. So in that case in point, you were happy to see him throw another INT. I mean, he's just being himself, right?
Very true.
But you said it's interesting because we have 18 weeks of action, but yet you had to go 20-0, and you mentioned the Christmas Day game, because just so our viewers understand, we're talking about 18 weeks of action, but then there's a Christmas, like this year, there's Wednesday, Thursday, you have 3 games, Christmas Day and the day after, and then on Black Friday, The day after Thanksgiving, you have another 3 games Thanksgiving. Those 2 weeks, even though you only have 3 and 4 games, those are considered 2 additional weeks. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into this, because you might want to sandbag and hold back 1 or 2 of those teams because you don't want to get stuck in a pick'em game. For our viewers, I want them to understand that you have to pick one team each and every week. You can only pick that team one time. And again, 20-0. That would be like going to a sports book on a Saturday, Sunday and saying, I want to bet a 20-team parlay, money line parlay. I don't recommend it, but that's what you did. That's why you have my respect. But again, I'm a basket of nerves each and every week betting these games. I can only imagine, because only one, you have one bad week. And it's not like, and your competitors, my friend, they're going 5 and 6 entries. You only had 1. Have you competed since?
Yes, I had. After I won in 2021, I decided to put my kids in it, and I had 30 entries, and I was out by week 7. and then the following year, I had 1 entry last year, and I was out by week 10. But you have to do what got you there. I basically said to myself, I want to go ahead and just go back to 1 and concentrate on just 1, not 10, 20, 30. It gets too confusing, and as you can tell, I did not win. I lost pretty early, a bunch of them the first week, and when I had the 30, in fact, I lost 20 of my entries in the first week. So it was very difficult to take after going 20-0, and then the first week for the next season it comes about, and you're already out $20,000 pretty much.
I like the fact that you believe in you and you try to neutralize, if not flat out eliminate, the outside noise. But you had family involved, 10 entries, 10 entries, 10 entries. Were they trying to, even though they may or may not be qualified, I mean, you are the world champ, but are they giving you advice unnecessarily?
My son, he was basically in my ear all the time. He was in my ear the year I won also. And had I listened to him, I would have lost. With a couple of games he wanted for me to play, and I said no, I'm going to go with the games I got myself here. I'm going to play, and I'm going to just go ahead and go with my gut feeling itself. That's what I did.
So you said one of the mistakes that most people make is they listen to too many people or they have too many entries. Any other mistakes that you see from the average Joe who gets knocked out early and often, Chris?
I can remember on Twitter, I had people commenting going like, because I had told them I like betting, or not betting, putting my picks in with the home teams and favorites. And one guy basically says, well, that's, you shouldn't have played all favorites or whatever. I went like, I'm $1.2 million richer than you in a sense. If I would have listened to you too, don't listen to people, do it on your own and just go from there. I think that's the best way to do it.
I love it. And so you are doing it this year, but it's going to be 1 entry as opposed to 10. So you're going to lock yourself in a closet in a dark room and just concentrate. You're not throwing darts at a board here, obviously, because you can't do that 20 times. Anyone can get lucky once or twice,
sure,
but not 20 consecutive weeks. What specific strategy do you employ?
Well, my main strategy was basically getting teams that really looked terrible at the beginning. I mean, during that 2021 season, I was playing against the Jets. They were terrible. Detroit was terrible. Those were the 2 teams I concentrated. The Texans also were terrible. They just were not playing to, they weren't beating anybody. So, I mean, I was looking at teams to go against that way. But you have to basically pick the teams that you feel have the best shot for you that week and go from there.
Well, they call it a survivor contest, but I know some people will proactively try and play out each and every week before the season starts, and they'll change boats in midstream. But to your point, you're saying 1 week at a time, forget thinking too far in advance and just survive.
That's it. That was my bottom line. I didn't really get into it in a sense of going like, I have a shot to win here until Thanksgiving. When I had Thanksgiving, I had basically, they had 3 games on the board. Chicago played Detroit in Detroit. The Raiders played Dallas, and the Saints played the Bills. And I already had some of those teams I couldn't play. But I said, I'm not playing Dallas against the Raiders. I'm not a Dallas fan to begin with. And that wound up being the biggest one, I believe. I think there was over 90 people at the time that got knocked out when the Raiders beat Dallas. And I wound up taking the Bears against Detroit. It was a back and forth game, and I had a field goal at the end to basically get me over the hump there. The thing with Chicago was, I felt that it was a morning game, and then I could root against everybody else in the afternoon and the evening game. That's what I did.
There's another wrinkle to this contest on the Thursday night and or the Friday London game, or I forget where the game is on Friday. I think it is in London with Philadelphia and Green Bay this year as an example. I guess consistent with years past, Chris, that you can, as an example, if you wanted to do 10 entries and you want to take a shot at it this year, like with Kansas City as a 2.5, 3-point favorite at home against Baltimore, and you lose, you have the opportunity to re-ante up. The idea is if you can pick correctly, a la maybe Kansas City, you're getting 2.5, 3 points, the best of it, and they win. Hey man, if it's a $10 million prize and you have, 10,000 people that are in the contest, you've got positive equity. And if, God forbid, lightning strikes and you lose, hey, just another $10,000. Easy for me to say.
Very true. I mean, I believe that game is in Brazil, though.
Oh, is it? Okay. On Friday.
On Friday.
Thursday, it's KC. Friday, yes, we're going to South America. Right. Brazil, I've always wanted to go there. Well, and now I have a reason to go.
You can.
So you have any thoughts on the Thursday night game with Kansas City at home against Baltimore, to be followed by Philadelphia hosting Green Bay on a neutral field?
No opinion. No opinion on both those games. I think they're just too tight to predict or whatever. I think that you have two teams, Baltimore and Kansas City, basically playing last year in the AFC Championship game. Now they're going to playing in Kansas City. Could be a little revenge too. I remember last year when Detroit came into Kansas City, the first game of the year, and Detroit knocked out Kansas City. That's, a lot of people did go ahead and put their, entries in for that game or whatever, and then they had to re-up. If that's, what you want to do, go ahead and do it. I think the, books, I think Circa in a sense wants you to do that. They want that extra, money in their pocket because they have that guarantee of $10 million this year.
I love, love, love Circa. It's the world's largest and best sports book for a reason. The CEO, Derek Stevens, innovative, critical, independent thinker. Love the guy. And he's guaranteeing the money. Even in your case, even though you had 5,200 plus entries, he guaranteed going into the season an overlay of $6 million. 100% of the money. There is no rake. There is no administrative fee. 100% of the money plus, again, we're not talking 5.2 million. He guaranteed 6 million. This year he's guaranteeing 10 million, even though last year we had 9,200 plus.
Correct. I mean, he goes on his way. He knows the way the contest is working. That's why he puts his money where his mouth is, basically, in a sense. I mean, to go to $10 million this year, hopefully, I think I looked at it last night. I think it's at 5,900 right now, so they got a little ways to go, but you got a couple weeks to go till the season begins. So he'll get there. I'm sure he will.
Last year was the first time I did the Circa. I've had success in other contests, and I'll be re-upping, re-anting up again this year. I'm going to do another 10 entries for the Circa Millions. Actually, the first year for the Circa Millions, which is a $1,000 entry, you can do up to 5 entries. We have common friends, Brad Powers, Steve Fezzik. These guys took 21st and 39th out of 5,000 plus contestants. But I'm really intrigued by the Circa Survivor because that is life-changing money. You're talking about 1.2 million. You're talking about 6 million. It's interesting to me that 5,200 plus people started and only 5 people, you included, were left standing. Last year, $9.2 million, right? As far as the prize money. And you had 4 people that chopped it at the end. They each netted 2.3 million. Hey, that's real money.
Real money. And it shows how difficult this contest actually is. Everyone thinks it's easy. I can remember my son going like, oh, that's nothing. That should be able to win that easily. And I'm going like, wait and see. It's the NFL. It's unpredictable. And you can see from week to week, I mean, teams, favored by 10, 14 points, and they lose outright.
Yeah.
And you just basically have to pick the game that you feel is the best game on the board for yourself, that you still have a team to play, and go and move forward. That's all it is. Pick the game, move forward. Pick the game, move forward. That's it.
I remember the first year, again, I was just monitoring it, but I had friends in the contest looking good, feeling good. The Jets, 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 dog shit team at the time, dog shit franchise since, Joe Namath guaranteed the 19-point underdog win against the Colts back in '69. But this year is going to be different. I think the Jets are going to make some noise. But to my point, when you look at the Jets were taking on the Rams, and the Rams were a 17-point favorite late, and my friends had the Rams in their back pocket, and the Jets, forget covering the 17-point number, they won the game straight up and basically ousted everybody in the tournament.
That's all it takes. And this year's going to be the same way because you got one team that's basically a high spread. You got the Bengals -9 against New England. I would say probably half the field this year is going to take the Bengals. And you either take it or you move on and play somebody else.
Well, now that's a good point. You're talking about week one. The Bengals, I've always called them the Bungles in the past, but the fact is they've been to the AFC Championship game 2 of the last 3 years. They went to the Super Bowl the 1 year and lost to the Rams. But this is a team that had a winning record last year in spite of the fact their stud horse QB, Burrow, was out. They had some injury problems, yet they still had a winning record, 9-8, but they did not make the playoffs. Now you come back with a NFL rewards negative behavior. If you eat crap 1 year, you come back with a favorable schedule the next. So the Bengals have a cake non-division schedule. I mean, most teams get 1 bye, but the Bengals have like 5 because the Bengals get to play the Patriots plus their regular bye. They play the Tennessee Titans. They play the Pittsburgh Steelers. They play the Carolina Panthers. They're starting the season 4-0, 5-0 right from the get-go. But I want to back up to your point, the fact that they are the biggest favorite on the board, 9.5 at home against the hopeless, hapless, heartless Pats without Belichick. But I think that's a conservative estimate. I think more than half of the field will be on the Bengals because the second favorite on the board is the Buffalo Bills, favored by 6.5 at home against Arizona. So here's my question. Do you kind of counterintuitively think in terms of maybe taking a small favorite, maybe like Seattle, to win at home against a rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, and the Denver Broncos as a 5-point favorite? Or do you look to take the Saints at home against Carolina as an example and just hope for a major upset with the Pats?
I haven't decided yet, and I'll tell you why. 2022, after I put in my 30 entries, I had Cincinnati on 10 of my entries, and they lost to Pittsburgh as a favorite at home. And they missed an extra point. They missed a field goal. And I'm going, oh my goodness, you got to be kidding me here. Next year, 2023, the Bengals lose again. They lost again the first week of the season. And I mean, they've lost the first game back to back. Now you get the Bengals. They don't like, I don't know what it is about them in the first game of the year, but they just don't play well the first game of the year. And a lot of these teams, that's the thing about the NFL right now. A lot of these teams, your starters aren't playing. They haven't even played a preseason game or even a quarter. And now you're basically going, okay, I got Joe Burrow against whoever the quarterback is for New England. And myself, I'm still up in the air about putting the Bengals as my number 1 pick after losing the last 2 years, the first week of the season.
I get it. Now, do you bet other sports besides football?
Sure. I bet college. I bet college football, basketball. I like both. I like college more than I like the NFL. That's why I play the contest in the NFL, because to me, it's very unpredictable. I do better with the NFL betting half times and in-game wagering, because I mean, who wants to lay 10 to 14 points on a team, and in the first quarter you're down 10-0, and you're laying 14, and you're going like, well, that ticket's dead. Let me just watch the game here. I've already got my wager in a sense with my team. I'm going to go with Survivor and go from there.
Yeah, you touched on something interesting because we're both fortunate to be invited to the World Championship of Sports Betting, the Friday night Circa Invitational. We both finished in the top 5 last year. You took 5th. I was fortunate to take 3rd. We're both back in it this year. They've increased the field by invite only from 16 to 25. Every single contestant. I know Fezzik is in it this year. Next week's guest, Chris Zanuck is going to be in the studio next week. We'll be talking about that on this show. Let's Bet. We've got some heavy hitters, but this is our first show, so I wanted to reach out to you before anyone else. But we've got the Mad Russian, the pro bettor from Florida, who won the Circa Friday night contest, right? Brent Musburger, the living legend, calls it the sharpest hour in sports betting, and I'm a big fan of the Mad Russian. He's a man's man, if you will. And this guy, I do this 24/7. This is what I do, but I love the Mad Russian because he lives in Florida as a professional, but he comes to Vegas now and again, and I met him at Circa, and the guy's two-fisted, drinking beer. He was just on the TV show promoting the contest. And at that time, I was in first, he was in second, but 2 weeks later, it flip-flopped. And then you have Tony the Great Gordon, who's going to be a guest on this show as well. Tony took second place, pro bettor, won the Circa Millions a few short years ago, and he's based out of California. You got other guys that are going to be on this show, like Brad Powers, who he prefers college football. But I want to talk about the format for the Friday night Circa Invitational, that you have 7 picks, college and pro football, point spreads, and totals. And you're telling me you prefer college as opposed to pro.
Correct. I like the college game. You're allowed to play 4 totals in the college game. That's the max you can play. And I normally play all 4 college totals but this year it could change. I'm not sure. I mean, with the NIL now, and you got quarterbacks, you got a lot of things going on with a lot of these teams or whatever. I know last year, plus you have, you have the best bet this year. And the best bet is worth 1.5 instead of last year, where it's only worth 1 point, which is going to be big, I believe.
Well, now you tell me. I mean, last year I had the best bet record, 13 wins, 5 losses, which I like the incentive. If there's a tiebreaker, you win. I owned all tiebreakers against everybody, but it never came down to a tiebreaker. And Tony the Great Gordon, he's so smart and savvy. I love the guy. He reminds me of you, because he's always looking for that unfair advantage. And he had me by a half a game, and he kind of guessed, and he guessed correctly. And he asked me when we were at Circa if I ever did that. I said, no, I'm not chasing anybody. I'm just going to pick who I pick, and you guys can chase me, even if I'm in third place. That's my mentality. But again, that's me. So to your point, you had the Mad Russian who took first. He primarily is an NFL guy. Tony the Great Gordon, same thing, primarily an NFL guy. Guys like you and me, I like college football totals. I like college football dogs. I don't just go into anything and everything blindly by saying that, but when I look at who's on my ticket, it's almost always a total and it's almost always a dog. Again, that's me having done this for 30 plus years. I want to ask you, Chris, as we're coming to a close, we've got about 5 minutes left. My question for you would be, what would you say are the top 3 skills necessary to be a winning sports bettor?
Doing your homework. You've got to do your own homework. It's your money. Plus, you have to have confidence in yourself, determination, and money management is another one.
Everyone knows that I will decompress, chill, relax, escape, fly across the world. I decompress every year after the Super Bowl. I go to Thailand. I go to Costa Rica. I go to Mexico. What do you do to chill, relax? I mean, I love what I do. I chose to eat this frog. My girlfriend knows Friday, Saturday, Sunday during football season, I'm a bit curt, a bit short, because I'm totally preoccupied between the contests with deadlines. I'm handicapped. I always have a fear of missing a deadline per the contest, but I try to stay in my lane. The main thing is the main thing. If you're betting thousands of dollars on these games, if you're betting $2,200 to win $2,000 and you miss something and you turn a winner into a loser, it's a $4,200 mistake. So the stakes are high times 6 months of action. Again, I'm spent after the 6 months, even though more times than not it's lucrative and I love it. And this is the lifestyle that I chose, but no one enjoys getting away from it more than me after the Super Bowl. What are your thoughts?
Well, you got to get away, and I like to go to the racetrack. I like to go to Santa Anita, Del Mar. I go down to Florida, go to Gulfstream. I like to play the horses, and I also golf. So golfing and playing the horses, and that's my basically traveling is my outlet. And you've got to do it because otherwise you drive yourself crazy, especially during the summer, because once, basketball ends, you had baseball, and baseball, summertime, it's a long season, 162 games. So you got to, that's another thing I like to do too, is I'm a big Angel fan and Dodger fan. So I also go to the baseball games too.
You remind me of me. I travel quite a bit. My buddy David, my girlfriend Arlene, we love Angel Stadium. It's probably my favorite stadium. It's easy in, easy out, Diamond Club, buffet, and you wouldn't know what to look at me, but I have not missed too many meals. Dodger Stadium, Stadium Club, buffet, sitting behind home plate, watching the best player in all of baseball and Shohei Ohtani. So to your point, I get that as well. In fact, I just went to SoFi Stadium for the first time to see the Chargers play preseason football. I know the Super Bowl is going to be there in the next year or two. I want to talk now about, you don't have to look far to find frustration when betting sports, to do what you and I do at the highest level. What frustrates you most when betting sports?
Probably the coaching and the players, the way they handle themselves. I mean, I hate to get a great play and then you have a player that basically does something stupid and he gets a 15-yard penalty, or a coach that knows nothing about what he's doing out there. It's like the coach for the Atlanta Falcons that's now the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. I'm
going like, how did this guy get another job? Seriously. There's nobody else out there. No, I know it's the way it is, with, the buddy system or whatever, but there's got to be somebody better out there than this guy. That's what drives me more crazy. It's going like, okay, run this play. It's just like the Packer game against the Browns back a couple years ago. If you're running the ball and they're not stopping you, keep running the ball. You don't have to throw the ball. Don't put in Baker Mayfield's hands and let him basically try to win you the game. Keep pounding the ball. If it's working, keep doing it. But these coaches, they drive me crazy more than anybody else, I believe.
I agree with you. Don't fix it if it's not broken. One of my biggest frustrations is I'll handicap a game. I'm betting the under. I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. I win by 20 in a basketball game. Oh, it goes overtime. Well, and I lose by 1. It's like I didn't handicap the game for 5 quarters. I handicapped it for 4. The way to get around that, bet the first half. Even I have not found a way to lose a game if I bet the first half total on betting under. So as we wrap things up, we have about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes left here, my friend. I want to get to our Super Bowl predictions. I'm going to focus on who I think is coming out of the AFC, but I want to hear who you like coming out of the NFC.
The NFC, I believe it's going to be I think it's going to be the Niners. I think the Niners have the best team. You have to have a team. And it's just not individual players. And I think as long as they sign Hanuk, I believe the Niners will basically be out of the NFC this year.
You like the Niners? I'm looking at the AFC. I know the Jets will be improved. I like Baltimore. They have a solid team. I like the Bengals. The problem is they're in a tough division. I also like the Cleveland Browns based on talent. Houston Texans are for real. And I never go with the team. It's so hard to repeat. It is so hard. But the Kansas City Chiefs last year, Mahomes, the greatest quarterback on the planet, this guy had statistically had his worst season ever. And instead of hosting the playoff games at Arrowhead, where they have a distinct home field advantage, they went on the road to Baltimore, won. Went to Buffalo, won. Went on the road, neutral site against the Niners, Super Bowl, they win. They've improved. The rich have gotten richer. This team, they've addressed their weakness, which is basically wide receivers. They had a good draft. They've improved their team. They've got a great kicking game. This team, buyer beware. They have to play the Bengals and they have to play the Ravens 2 of the first 4 weeks. After that, clear sailing. Kansas City, 3-peat. The Niners, I like what you say about the Niners. I'm looking for a repeat of what we saw this year. I went to the game this year, loved it. Kansas City in overtime, knocking off the Niners. I say Kansas City represents the AFC. Come up with the dark horse, an undervalued team in the NFC, and I'll do the same for the AFC as we wrap it up.
I think it's going to be Philadelphia. I think they have something to prove from last year. They lost, I think it was 7 straight games at the end. And I believe that if the coach and the players can get together and just go ahead and play like they did when they were 11-1 at one point of the season, I think that's your team that has a good shot to make it a long way in the playoffs or whatever. Atlanta is another team that can be the same way.
I like what you say. I'm going to go with the dark horse in the AFC, the Cincinnati Bengals. They're hungry. They have a chip on their shoulder, cake, favorable schedule outside their division. So I like the Bengals based on value, based on a big fat number you can get. Even if they don't win their division, they're going to make the playoffs. My big bet, boys and girls, write it down, back up the truck, unload. Bengals, I bet them at minus 195. I bet them at 205, minus 210. It's been bet up to minus $3. Bengals to make the playoffs. See the cashier. Chris Piper, great having you with us. How can people find you, reach out to you?
You can reach me on X at Wagolfer, W-A Golfer 69.
Love you. Love what you did today. You'll be back, my friend. Continued good luck.
Thank you, Scott.
That's going to wrap up this edition of Let's Bet. Scott Pritchard, founder of Pritchard'sPicks.com. Get locked and loaded. The best picks or paid picks at Pritchard's Picks. Sign up for my Pritchard's Pick of the Day. More content, more plays, one low monthly fee, $25. Are you kidding me? $25. Reach out to us here at Let's Bet at Pritchard'sPicks.com. That's Let's Bet at Pritchard'sPicks.com. Next week, Pro Better Chris Zanuck will be my guest. Until next week, see the cashier.